After spending his entire life on the streets, this giant talking cat ends up at a shelter. But then he utters one shocking word. Clancy had been lingering near a house, hoping for food and a warm place to rest. His orange fur showed signs of wear from past injuries, and his green eyes always seemed to hold a certain despair. What truly set him apart was his soft, distinctive meow, raspy, high-pitched, and full of personality. One day, the woman living in the house heard this unusual meow and was taken aback. She had never heard a cat make that sound before. When she pointed out the cat to her husband, they started joking that it almost seemed like he was trying to communicate. Clancy was not just another stray, he was a cat with something to express, and soon he would. The lovable giant's exceptional quality was about to be revealed. The caring woman began giving him food and fresh water, and Clancy found a cozy spot to rest not too far from the house. She sensed that he was hesitant to leave, which saddened her as she thought about his past. Clancy had spent most of his days on the streets. The big ginger cat, with his round cheeks, had endured the tough urban environment of Eastern Oregon for nearly 7 years. It was unclear if he had ever known the comfort of a real home or the affection of a loving owner. Life had dealt him a rough hand. He bore the marks from endless encounters with other strays, and his body was fatigued from years of survival. Despite his struggles, Clancy had a way of making people pause, take a second look, and smile. In a world where stray and wild animals were often overlooked, his cheeky round face endeared him to many, like the kind woman who had noticed him now. He appeared genuinely thankful for the refuge he had found with her and her husband. The woman understood that she had to do everything possible to secure a proper home for Clancy. She started reaching out to local shelters, but the response was consistently the same. All the shelters were at capacity, and given Clancy's history as a street cat, the chances of him being adopted seemed slim. They simply didn't have the space to accommodate a long-term resident who might require extensive care and training to adjust to living with people. Additionally, there was always the concern that living on the streets might have made Clancy too difficult to handle. However, the woman and her husband had witnessed his gentle and affectionate behavior. Despite her persistent efforts to convince various shelters, none were willing to take him in. One day, the compassionate stranger who had been leaving food for Clancy observed that he was not in good shape. His coat was less vibrant than usual, and he appeared weaker and more fragile. Clancy typically loved to greet people with head bumps, but today, he barely had the strength to stand. It was painful to see the once spirited cat in such distress. Clancy desperately needed help. The stranger wrapped him in a blanket and brought him to a small local rescue, a place they hadn't yet approached. Although the shelter was minimal and poorly funded, offering only a temporary refuge, it provided Clancy with a safe space to recover. The shelter staff quickly grew fond of the large, affectionate cat, but they recognized that he required much more care and attention than their crowded facility could provide. They conducted health tests on Clancy and were taken aback by the results. Clancy tested positive for feline immunodeficiency virus, commonly found in outdoor cats who have faced tough conditions and frequent altercations. His body displayed signs of a hard life on the streets, with old scars, some jagged and others faded, marking his ginger fur like a map. His teeth were in poor shape due to malnutrition and neglect, and it appeared his bladder infection had gone untreated for months, causing him significant pain and suffering. Despite all this, Clancy remained a gentle giant. It was evident that he had spent his life on the streets, yet he was different from other feral cats. While many outdoor cats tend to be nervous and cautious around humans, fiercely self-sufficient, and often unfamiliar with kindness, Clancy stood out. His battered appearance did not reflect his personality. He was affectionate and warm. He actively sought human interaction and would brighten up whenever shelter staff approached his cage, eagerly moving forward for a pet. Clancy's behavior was a puzzle. Despite years of street life, he held on to the hope that someone would care for him. Now that he had a safe environment, his loving nature continued to blossom. The shelter staff soon noticed the peculiarity about him, similar to what the woman who fed him observed. His meow had a whimsical quality. almost resembling words, which brought plenty of joy to the team. However, there was an issue. Due to Clancy's numerous medical requirements, the small shelter lacked the necessary resources to provide adequate care. They recognized that shelters throughout Oregon were facing challenges with overcrowding and insufficient funding, but they were committed to ensuring Clancy received the care he needed. They believed that one day he would become a fantastic companion for someone, but first he required assistance. They reached out to the cat adoption team, CAT, in Sherwood, Oregon, hoping the agency could take Clancy in. When Heather Svoboda, the communications and development manager at CAT, learned about his situation, she immediately agreed that the gentle cat could be transferred to them. She was eager to meet this extraordinary cat and confirm whether his meows truly resembled words. Before long, Clancy was moved to CAT, where he got the essential medical treatment he was in urgent need of. He underwent neutering, received treatment for a bladder infection, and had dental surgery to address the painful, decaying teeth. After several weeks of care, Clancy began to feel much better, so much so that he started to talk even more. His unique squeaks and chirps became a delightful background at the shelter, and the staff adored his peculiar conversations. By that time, everyone had fallen in love with him, and now that he was recovering well, they were eager to find him a perfect home. After years of living on the streets, he deserved a cozy home, a soft bed, and someone to care for him. Yet, despite their affection for Clancy, they understood that finding him a forever home would be challenging. His large, teddy bear-like appearance was undeniably charming, but being an older cat meant that most people preferred adopting kittens. Additionally, Clancy had feline immunodeficiency virus, requiring regular medical checkups and treatment for related health issues, as well as the need for him to live indoors alone to stop the virus from spreading. It was a lot to expect from anyone. Soon enough, Clancy would surprise everyone, and the shelter staff would discover a way to make him appealing to potential adopters. One day, while Clancy was exploring his temporary space, something remarkable occurred. He had settled in his favorite spot, soaking up a sunbeam by the window, when a volunteer came to show him some love. As was his custom, Clancy greeted her with his unique, raspy meow. He always enjoyed visitors at his cage and offered a headbutt or even rolled over for a few belly rubs. He was purring contentedly when suddenly, his meow transformed. It became clearer than ever, and the volunteer could have sworn she heard him utter something surprising. From his small mouth came a sound that closely resembled, "Hello." The volunteer paused, thinking it was just a coincidence. After all, cats don't speak, do they? But Clancy gazed up at her with soft, affectionate eyes and meowed again, clearly articulating, "Hello." They had all joked about how it seemed like Clancy was trying to converse with them. After all, he was a very talkative cat. But this felt different. The volunteer chuckled and gave the joyful giant an extra scratch behind the ears before hurrying off to share what she had witnessed. News quickly circulated through the shelter about the enormous talking cat who appeared to express real human words. It was no longer just a strange, raspy meow. Clancy was something special. Initially, the volunteers' claims were met with skepticism, but as they began filming their interactions with the charming cat, it became clear that Clancy seemed to be engaging in conversation. The shelter had discovered Clancy's standout feature, something sure to capture people's interest, regardless of his age and health challenges. No one could resist the talking cat. They started sharing videos of Clancy chatting with the volunteers, drawing in thousands of viewers who were amazed by his affectionate behavior and humorous exchanges. It was hard to believe this was a cat that had lived on the streets. Sandy, a woman from Oregon who had been following Clancy's story since it began, was among those who watched the videos. She had always loved cats, particularly those needing special attention. Upon seeing Clancy's video, her heart soared, and she instantly felt she had to meet him. There was something in the way he chirped and the sparkle in his eyes when he spoke. It felt like Clancy was reaching out to her directly. The shelter had been transparent about the additional care Clancy would require, but that didn't deter Sandy. She was confident she could provide him with a loving home full of affection and safety for his lifetime. She reached out to the shelter and soon found herself on the way to meet the large ginger cat. When she arrived at Cat, excitement coursed through her. Sandy had always had cats, but just a few months prior, she had lost her last one to old age. Her home felt hollow, and she was about to start searching for a new pet when Clancy's first video appeared. It seemed like fate. With no other cats at home, she felt equipped to offer Clancy the experience and patience he needed for a happy life. Sandy believed they were destined to be together. As she entered, anticipation filled the air as she looked forward to meeting Clancy, the chatty cat. She just hoped for a connection. Heather guided her to the spot where Clancy was resting, and there he was. The large orange ball of fluff relaxing on his favorite spot, seeming to wait for her. His vibrant green eyes rose to meet hers, and he let out a soft chirp of recognition upon seeing his visitors. Sandy knelt next to him, reaching out her hand gently. Clancy, always the gentleman, playfully bumped her with a soft thud, his favorite gesture. He purred robustly, nuzzling against her hand, and issued a deep yet unmistakably loving meow. As Sandy cradled Clancy for the first time, she was struck by his gentle conduct. He was larger than she anticipated, radiating a comforting warmth that felt reassuring. His round cheeks were even more charming in person, and his purr resonated soothingly in her chest. She instantly knew he was the cat meant for her. Since his initial meow to Sandy, the gentle giant had been chatty. It seemed he had so much to express to the woman who might offer him the love he had always sought. It was evident to everyone that these two were meant for each other, that Clancy had finally discovered his ideal companion. The adoption process was quick, and soon, Clancy was headed to his new forever home. Sandy took special care to ensure his transition went well, arranging comfy spots throughout the house, placing litter boxes conveniently, and providing numerous toys to keep him entertained. Since he would be an indoor cat, Sandy wanted to ensure the street-smart cat would not become bored. But Clancy didn't ask for much. He just wanted love, which he received plentifully from Sandy. With time, Clancy became established as the ruler of the household. He would trail after Sandy, constantly chirping or meowing as if he had something significant to say. At times, when the home was still and sunlight poured in through the windows, he would produce one of those remarkable meows that sounded almost like actual words. This never ceased to surprise Sandy, but it only added to the charm of this extraordinary cat. Throughout her years of having cats, she had never encountered one quite like Clancy. He was indeed one of a kind. Although Sandy had anticipated some adjustment when bringing Clancy home, the charming feline adapted as if he had always belonged there. It was evident to her that the cat had likely been yearning for this moment his entire life. She felt fortunate to have been the one to fulfill his dreams at last. Now it's your turn. What are your thoughts on this story? Have you ever heard of other stories where animals seem to speak? We'd love to hear from you, so feel free to leave a comment below. Like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more amazing stories. Until next time, bye for now.